Hey, good morning. Good Moxie morning. I just got a phone call right before 10 o'clock, right before I was supposed to go on, and I had to take it because I had to do with one of my kids. Okay, so the headline here that I wrote above this video is a transformation. It's a good example of a transformation. So I went from, in the corporate world, really making, struggling to make six figures. And when you really think about it, $50,000 a year, you take away taxes and you really are not making a lot of money. Let's just be really honest about that. $50,000 a year to run a household with 3 kids is not very much money. And that is the median income in this country, this particular country, America. So it's not a lot of money. So I've talked about this before and how the gap is widening and there's a big separation now. And you know what? Let's just be honest. $50,000 a year when you have 3 kids, especially as a single parent, has put you in a place of almost feeling poor. Feeling poor. There's a struggle going on with that $50,000 a year raising 3 kids as a single parent. There's a struggle going on because when you really look at the cost of healthcare insurance for cars, when my kids turned 16, they all got a car. Well, actually my oldest, we waited until she was 17. My son too, actually, he was closer to 17. Hello, Deborah. Hi, Tammy. Okay, so there was a struggle going on with me, with time, with stretching that $50,000, sometimes $60,000, $70,000 income. I was stretching, myself. I was running myself ragged. I was sometimes in my car crying, because I couldn't make ends meet. And I remember having a friend say to me, how can you see, and this is the interesting part. I remember the day that she said this to me and I was just like, I felt bad, I felt ashamed. Okay, so I'm gonna get vulnerable here. I had a friend, she actually lived in Texas at the time. And I had just recently got divorced. It was about a year after I got divorced. And I was telling her about my struggle, I didn't know how I was going to continue making ends meet with daycare and then the house payment and then everything else. You would think that $50,000 would take care of it, right? It doesn't. And let's just be really honest about that. So, but when she said to me, well, you should be, and she said it in almost like a shameful way, like she was shaming me. You should be able to make this happen with $50,000 a year. And I said, one would think, right? But you take away taxes and health insurance and co-payments, and you take away all of the other added expenses and then the daycare expenses, right? Because and the thing is that my kids were in elementary school. One was actually in preschool. So there was the preschool bill as well. And so $50,000 a year with 3 kids and you're in struggle zone. You're working your ass off, excuse my French. I'm just going to be honest. So getting real and crystal clear here. $50,000 is the median income, which means most families are struggling. So I went from that, starting my coaching business, and I applied a commitment. There was a level of commitment because I was really committed to making it happen. But I just applied what I'd learned in sales, and that is putting together an offer. And then I did have to learn many technical things online because I was doing things a little bit differently. But I applied my sales skills, and I put an offer together and I sold it. And my first offer was $6,000, Yes, I was committed to giving a lot of free content. I had a weekly call, I did that. But I went from struggling to having a lot more time, not having to take male clients out to dinner so that they could put me in a position of flirting with me and me going, there was so much struggle in corporate as a woman, in corporate sales. There are struggles that I don't necessarily want to get into, but the struggle was real. So I went from that to starting my coaching business, and I became unemployable. When you really think about I could never go back to corporate, and I knew it. And that thought right there is a little bit scary because I learned
I knew what it took. I had what it took. I had created confidence around that, and I knew I could create $6,000 anytime I needed it, or have it anytime I needed a $10,000 a month, and really that's not even a lot. That's not even a lot, but it seemed like a lot to me because I was struggling. And here's the thing: when you're in that place, okay, where you're just getting by, you start putting things on credit. Right? And I don't remember doing this, but it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know why I can't remember it, but it wouldn't surprise me if there were times I actually put food on a credit card. Okay? This is how America is living. And I'm telling you, it has to do with you thinking that you have to be stuck in corporate, or thinking that that's the only way. You thinking that that is the only way is the only thing holding you and keeping you there and holding you in that prison. Because there isn't a way out. I would suggest you plan your way out. Okay, so like I just went cold turkey because that's kind of my style. But I had built enough confidence to know that I could sell. I had built enough confidence in myself because I had hit sales numbers before, and I had showed up, and I had, like I said, built confidence. And when you have that, now, I'm not saying that it was the easiest thing. Building a business online was not the easiest thing. There were times when I was up, all night long figuring things out, mostly because I was trying to figure things out myself. And I was, the money that I was making, I was putting back into my business. I was continuing to learn. I was investing in myself. I was getting coaches. But what I realized was that all the time that I had wasted in the struggle, crying in my car, taking out payday loans, when here I was, one of the top salespeople, and I'm going to the check cashing place. One of the reasons I started doing that, by the way, and that is a cycle that America, some of the stories that I've heard, it's sad. So taking out payday loans, people are living that way every single, 2 weeks. And one of the reasons I actually had to do that was because corporate screwed up my paycheck. And they shorted me a little over $1,000. And when I realized that $1,000 was going to screw me up big time because I needed that, I realized that I can't continue living like that. So, by the way, getting back to this friend of mine that said, you should be able, shame on you, you should be able to make $50,000 last you, you should be able to feed your kids and live fine. Let me just remind you that she's never really worked in her life. And she has one child, and she's married to a pilot, and I think she takes on odd jobs. But this particular woman, this friend of mine, didn't understand. And I realized that when she was sharing with me, like her notion that I should be able to make it work. Well, sure, there are ways to make it work, but there were also expenses that, when you're in corporate and in sales, there are expenses. I would many times have to take clients out, and that came out of my own money. And then, of course, I would have to expense it. And so if you don't have enough credit, you're paying cash to take a client out and have a nice bottle of wine, and then you're waiting, 2 weeks to get that expense report back to you. So when you're like always living, and it's super distracting. It's how can you focus on what's important, right, in your life when you're basically trying to keep a roof over your head and the kids fed and the daycare Nazis, happy. I used to call them the daycare Nazis. Okay, so, and God forbid you get pulled over and you get a ticket, right? My son got a $100 ticket. Oh, there's another $100. Because of course the city needs to be funded as well, right? So it's like even the smallest things can knock you off your game and distract you and put you in a place of complete and utter stress, right? Complete and utter stress over one thing, and that is money. Okay? Money and getting by and making it all work and keeping the roof over your head and the kids fed, that's all so stressful. Okay, so I went from that to making in a day what I would make in a month. And I knew that I was unemployable at that time. So what are some of the things that I did? I was committed to building a list. I was committed to building a following. I was committed to servicing in such a way that that I helped people get results. Okay, so like I was committed to that. Like I had to remember also what it was like, and that's sometimes hard, but I have to remember what it's like to be in that place, right? So the place of struggle, I'm just telling you, we all have walls. We all have walls. And so I think one of the biggest transformations that occurred when I went from corporate struggle to having the time, first of all, the expense of the daycare after school, that went away, right? Because then when I was working from home, I can get the kids after school at 3 o'clock and not, or 4 o'clock actually, and not freak out. I didn't have to be at the office at 8 a.m. I could take them at 9 when school started, and so that the daycare expense went away. That was helpful. So I made more money and spent less, okay? I wasn't spending all the money on the clothes and taking clients out and wooing them or whatever it is that you want to call that, taking care of them. It just changed so dramatically, and I just couldn't even imagine going back to that. So I also wasn't always doing what I loved, like you're not always when you're in that stressful place, you actually your resentment starts to grow. You start to feel helpless. You start to feel hopeless, like there's no hope. I am actually in a rat race and I don't know how to get out. And the walls and like resentment and stress build, and they build walls up around you. And let's see, where am I going with that? It's a hard thing to explain, but some of you might understand. So when you start to build up walls, okay, what you're doing is you're protecting yourself. Because when you are in a state of stress, we don't realize it, but we actually start building up walls to protect ourselves, okay? Sometimes we're angry and resentful and we're exhausted. And so we start to build walls to protect ourselves because we think that one single wrong move and it's like a house of cards that can just fall, right? And that feeling of the house of cards could fall, I remember thinking, if I were to get hurt in a car accident, anything, I couldn't afford that. I couldn't afford for that to happen. I couldn't afford to not go to work. I couldn't afford it. I worked on straight commission too, by the way. And not everybody does, I understand that. But I do know that there's a big trap to the whole salary game. Also jealous of others' perceived success. Yeah, so those are all emotions. Like we trap ourselves in this emotional, okay, so how do you get out of that? How do you get out of that? You start to work on yourself and your confidence. Like, how do you build up your confidence? How do you get yourself to know and understand that there are answers, okay, outside of corporate and living paycheck to paycheck? There really are. So you have to also understand that we've been conditioned for years and years and years to believe that a salary and a job is success. It's actually, it took me a while, but I actually now, when I see salary and a job, I see somebody in prison. Okay, imprisoned and trapped with no freedom. They're trapped with what day they can take off. They're trapped in a place of not being able to really choose a whole lot of anything. And that trap builds and builds, like for years. And when you're in that place, what that does to your mind is it restricts you. But the stress of it, and when you have kids, I think is like one of some of the hardest years that I've ever experienced was me working in corporate with kids. And when you have a business, you are trading it for a different kind of stress. But I'm here to tell you, when you know what to do in your business to make money, create offers, use copywriting, compelling, when you get comfortable with putting yourself out there, and you start building confidence in all of these areas, that stress will dissipate and go away. And when it does, you'll start to see stress in others and you'll be able to feel so relieved that that's not you anymore. But it is going to kind of feel like you're climbing a mountain to get out of it, okay? But if you could just take whatever your expertise is, if anyone is listening that you're building a business and you still are in corporate, if that corporate job and you're in kind of this place where do I quit? What do I do? I understand. But if you can ask yourself this, what raises your vibration? What makes you feel joy? Because that place of joy and that raising your vibration, what dissipates that angst, that resentment? Like, what is it? Is it your... So if you really hate your corporate job and it's bringing up all of these emotions, I think it's time for you to go all in. That's my suggestion. Go all in with your business, and just do whatever it takes to make it happen. Okay? And so, but if your corporate job isn't a place that you hate necessarily, okay, and it doesn't necessarily lower your vibration, I hope you know what I mean by that. But if it doesn't lower your vibration and you see it as a stepping stone, okay, and it's helping you fund your business, and see, this is one of the hardest things, and you're able to go ahead and put the time into building your business too. If you're able to do those two things I say without lowering your vibration, you know, without that angst and that the feeling that corporate will sometimes do to people, then I say try to do both as long as you can. Try to do both as long as you can. But if you're having a hard time going to your corporate job because you cannot stand it anymore, then maybe it is time to let it go and go all in, okay, in your business. But don't do it without a coach. I'm going to say that. Don't do it without a coach. You can't, especially if you don't have a sales background, you can't guess at what to do. Having a sales background, I think, helped me with confidence more than anything else, but it helped me understand people. You got to understand people, and you got to not hide. Okay, if you're in hiding mode, you've got to work your way out of that, and that will take some time. That will take some time to step into that. Okay, and that's okay. That's okay. But know that there's going to be that gap. Here's also a thing that I see in people. When people are too comfortable in corporate, they tend to not put themselves, they don't put any time into their business. It's kind of like, it ends up being like a hobby on the side. So ask yourself and be aware of that. Is this comfort, is this salary and this comfortable position affecting you building your business? Okay, so if you're able to do both and put that time into your business in the evenings or whatever, I don't know what your hours are, but in the evenings and the weekends, if you're able to do that, good for you. Very few people can do that. Okay, so because we're all so distracted by our emotions. We're distracted by tweets from Hollywood. I woke up this morning and saw all these tweets about Roseanne Barr, and I'm like, who effing cares? I don't care. I don't care. I don't have time to care, and I can't afford to care. You know, we got to start thinking that way, people. Like, how can you afford to care about something that somebody said when they were on Ambien or whatever that drug is, or whatever? Like, this was the news that came up. You know, I'm like waking up in the morning and I see, you know, tweet after, or not tweet, I'm sorry, I don't even get on Twitter anymore. But what I do is I post from Instagram, and sometimes it will go, it's linked to my Twitter, but I just don't spend time on Twitter anymore. But when I see how people are emotionally triggered by Hollywood, I want to say that's the problem. It's not about balance, and you don't have a problem with balance as much as you have a problem with distraction. Like, you do. And so if you're being emotionally triggered, and I saw someone make a post about if you are supporting her, then F you, and if you're supporting whatever, and I'm thinking, okay, well, that could be why you're struggling, because you're putting something that really doesn't have anything to do with you in front of your business and taking action. And when you have an emotional trigger like that and you let that ruin your day, how much did that cost you? Is Roseanne Barr really worth that? Hollywood? Holly weird? Whatever you want to call it. I saw something like that today. Like, I thought that's kind of true. It is a weird world. Why do we care so much about it? Let's not let it distract us into the poorhouse. Okay, so if you're middle class, you're probably looking at, you're feeling pretty poor if you have kids anyway. And I'm not saying that, you know, we live in a world where we have a lot of what we need. Okay, so I'm not suggesting, you know, that life is, you know, awful. I'm suggesting that there's a lot of responsibility. There are a lot of walls that we build up because of it, and there is a struggle going on. It's mostly inside of us because we don't think we have options, and we do. We don't think we have options. So work on yourself, work on where you're putting your energy, where you're putting your emotions, what you're letting trigger you, and just focus on some of the most important things in your business, and that is creating offers, servicing your clients and your prospects. Okay, what do your prospects need to hear from you? You don't get caught up in the news. Good for you. Yeah, I don't watch TV anymore. So it is drama. It's all drama. And how is it affecting you? And what is it costing you? You got to put that into perspective. What the hell is it costing you? It actually could be costing you a life of freedom. Because that's what my business does for me. It gives me a life of freedom when I focus on the most important things, and that is servicing my clients and then sales. And so think about that. What is it costing you? So is being triggered emotionally by something that Roseanne Barr said, is that worth trading for becoming, let's just say, becoming a millionaire, and using that to not only create a lifestyle that you want, and lower your stress, but also to start giving back? Okay, for those that have this philanthropy mindset, and you post a lot about philanthropy, well, it takes a lot of work to be a philanthropist, or to get to that level, to be able to give back at that level. So why are you posting about Roseanne Barr? Because that's not in alignment. Okay, so it's not in alignment. If you're getting triggered and it's causing you to not take the steps towards being a philanthropist, take the steps towards what they say you need, about $2 million to take care of yourself after retirement, 65. I don't even like the word retirement, but after 65, you need about $2 million. That's what they say, okay? And I think the numbers are changing every year, probably dramatically, okay? Because of this gap that's widening and how the middle class feels poor, okay? So think about where your time is going, and remember that you could make you can have $6,000, $10,000, $20,000 days if you're really focused. And if you're not doing it, it's probably, and if you're not watching where your time is going and what you're doing in your business, it's probably because you have built walls up to protect yourself. Maybe you have a fear of success that you need to look at, like really look at. You are going to be trading one stress for another, but I'm here to tell you that there is nothing worse than stress over financial struggles, because I've lived it. I lived it while I was in corporate, and there is nothing quite like that besides health. And let me just tell you, it actually can destroy your health. That stress that you're feeling, that you're carrying around, the deep resentment, the fear of it all of the angst, the emotions that go along with that. Well, it's no wonder that you're easily distracted by something like Roseanne Barr. Like, if you're distracted by that, it tells me something. It tells me something about what's going on in your head. And I might not even be popular for saying this. People are so obsessed with posting their drama-filled woe is me and sad, pitiful stories. Every time they get sick, have to go to the doctor. I see this a lot too. Ask yourself, is the stress causing the illness? Okay, is that, or are you using that? Are you staying sick? I've seen this in people too. Are you staying in a place of sick because you need love? Are you needing love and attention and you're not getting it, and maybe that's why you're posting a lot of it on Facebook? Like, I've never felt the need to post that. First of all, I don't get sick very much at all, but if I do, I don't really post about it. I don't feel the need to. I'm not trying to act superior, or I'm just suggesting, if you are a success-focused person like you say you are, if you're watching this, you're wanting to better your life, you're wanting to do that, then think about who you're surrounding yourself with, who is being triggered by Hollywood, and think about how your emotions are being triggered and where you're putting your energy. So is the energy that you are, we use our energy throughout the day, right? What is yours being used for? Is it being used to turn into income? To further your cause? To further your business? And all causes need money. All causes need money. Right? So I'm going to end there. It's 10:36. I'm going to end there. Just know that it is possible. You've got to get a handle on your emotions
And, I shared with you in the beginning of this video a little bit about my struggle in corporate. And I know that I'm not the only one struggling like that in corporate. I know I'm not, especially if you're a woman. And you are. If you're a woman in corporate, especially in sales, you're faced with a lot of things that I know that you are, and you're not talking about them. I'm not telling you to go talk about them, but there is always... Just had this conversation with someone yesterday too. And then I read a blog post that I'm dying to share. I'm actually friends with the gal. I found it and I want to ask her if I can post it. It's out there, so she put it on a blog, which, by the way, I'm sure she'll be fine with it, but I do want to post it. I think she wrote it beautifully, and it was about her experience in sales in the corporate world. I had a very similar experience, and it's emotionally draining. And she also left corporate and started her own business, and she's doing phenomenal. I'm just telling you, for those of you that feel stuck in corporate and that you are not happy and you think that that is the way it just has to be, I'm telling you, the stress and the resentment is growing inside of you, and it's only going to do a number on your health. It's going to do a number on your health. It's going to age you faster. And so you've got to find a place of happy, a place of what I call bliss. This word bliss is going, like, what does that mean? It means that you feel happy with where you are at and where you're going. Okay, so I was never happy in corporate with where I was going. I saw it as a dead end. I saw it as something that I had to do for my kids. And so if you are there, know that the answer is private message me and we can chat about it, or go to coachmecrystal.com and let's talk about it, because I have programs that can help you snap out of it. I've been there, I know, and I know what I had to do to get out of it. I also know that sales is the answer. Understanding sales, not avoiding it, not being easily distracted by drama, all of those things are there are important things that you need to focus on. And if distraction is something that is weakening and deteriorating your momentum, getting in the way of you building your momentum, then get a coach. There's an answer. Okay, private message me and I have some answers for you, or go to coachmecrystal.com. Okay, have a great day, everybody. I hope this helped. Bye.